Well, welcome. Tonight, in the heart of the cold, we have the health department here. Several issues that, some we've been ahead on, and I'm really proud once again to see in the paper that local towns are adopting certain rules and regulations that Milford's had for years. But let's start and go through what's new with the health department. Why don't we start with introductions?
Ken Evans, Chairman.
Paul Mazzucchelli, Health Agent.
Lenny Izzo, board member.
And junior.
Junior.
How many years?
35.
So the junior member is 35 years on the job. Not bad.
Not bad. It says a lot about the experience of this board. That gives us the opportunity to become ahead of most other towns because collectively we can think things out. We saw what was happening, throughout the country, throughout the state, and we jumped on it right away. We didn't wait for another town to start on it.
Yeah, and when you can remember back when Paul Revere started a trend, how you dealt with it then and how you're going to deal with it now.
That's right. He was the first health agent.
That's right.
I mean, when you think about it, we just read in the paper that town around us is now voting to move purchase of tobacco to 21 years old. What a novel idea.
Novel.
Yeah, it's something we did.
Yeah, we did 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's something that we went on science. It wasn't to, let's say, hurt the retailers, because that's what some of the feedback that we got. What are you doing this for? You're going to be hurting us. Like the corner markets and the stores, the variety stores, let's say. But it was all based on science. I guess they did a lot of studies, like they're doing now with the opiate crisis, and they found out too that the brain really doesn't develop in a person until they're at least 21. Most doctors would say that it's even 25 or 26. And that development is more or less something that would, where it would be like the addiction part of the brain. You have a little bit of the nicotine and whatnot, the next thing you know, you're addicted. Or you go to the vapes that have the nicotine in them, the next thing you know, you're smoking a pack a day, and if not more. And as you know well, being in science yourself, tobacco is one of the main causes of most of the chronic diseases, not only in this country, but in the world. And it's something that we followed. Again, this whole regulation was based on science. It wasn't based to hurt anybody. It wasn't based because, we wanted to make it tougher to sell tobacco, which we tried to do anyway, but this wasn't the reason why for this. And we felt as though that by going along with that, we would be ahead of the game and also protect the public, not only our residents, but our guests that come to Milford as well. And it worked out okay. We, like I said, a couple of pushbacks, but after it was explained, they seemed to, say, okay, we'll
But at the end of the day, I don't know anybody who would stand up and say, smoking is good for our population.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
I
mean, I believe, you mentioned doctors will say they shouldn't start smoking, but I think the age they use is like 90. That most physicians will say,
right.
It's okay, once you're 90 years old, you want to start,
Smoke all you want.
It won't make a lot of difference.
Right.
But when you start thinking through it, years ago, you changed the rules. And now it's not just on smoking tobacco. What was the health department? Was it nicotine delivery?
Nicotine delivery products, such as your e-cigarettes and your vapes and whatnot. That is also included in that 21 regulation that we have.
And you'll have some people who think because they're doing the vape, they can go in a restaurant and smoke because it's not an actual cigarette, but they can't do that.
Right.
Well, I mean, again, it's all about, I won't hold it against somebody who wants to smoke in their own house,
Sure.
in their own yard.
Right.
I mean, I hope there's no children or anything around, but it's their right. But when you're sitting in a restaurant, and I've been a smoker for years. I mean, Now every 3-4 months I have a nice cigar. So I get, you know, I'm a smoker, I'm silly, I should know better. But I do love a Cohiba every, you know. But I got my humidor now, lasts
Right.
forever because you don't smoke. But I would never think to do that, like right now in front of you or with you,
Right,
you know,
right.
in the room. Same thing in a restaurant. You know, just like I like rock music, I don't think I'd play it at the decibel level I play it, you know, in my own car
Exactly.
in a restaurant. You know, that pesky First Amendment gives me the right
Absolutely.
to be stupid and do silly things,
Sure.
as long as I don't impinge on your right.
Exactly, or their health. You know, and that's something that we considered back several years ago when, before the Department of Public Health banned smoking in food establishments and in bars and markets and whatnot. The Board of Health thought that it wasn't right then. And the only time I believe that we allowed it then was if you would separate, because most bars were.
Well, they had a
complaining about-
smoking section.
They had,
and-
right, but as you know, back then, the smoking section was here and the non-smoking section was here.
And you had central air that
Right.
just mixed
Right.
everything
Yeah,
together anyway.
They bought these smoke eaters that were allegedly going to take all the poisons and gases out of the air.
So we actually had it separated by a physical barrier.
Yep.
And I think we asked for 30 cubic feet per minute air exchange, you know, which was pretty good. And when we did that, again, we got kicked back. I think the National Restaurant Association.
They did.
And Mass Restaurant Association even came in to give their opinion. But they were nice about it, very professional about it. That seemed to work. After a while, people thought they were going to go to Bellingham or Franklin or whatever to eat because there was no smoking at their bars or restaurants. But no, it didn't change
But you know,
business one
Paul,
bit.
30 years ago, 40 years ago, I would have said that's accurate. But even today, when you start looking at entire hotel chains, I mean, I don't know what they charge, but it's like $200-300. You know, that would be an expensive cigar to fire up in a hotel room.
Yeah.
You know, or a cigarette, because they charge you $200-300. I know I've stayed in many a Marriott where you don't ask for non-smoking rooms anymore. The whole hotel is
It's non-smoking, right.
non-smoking.
Right.
So
Well,
when you
look at
start
Disney
thinking,
World, no smoking on the entire grounds.
really?
Yeah,
Well, you know, and again, there's kids everywhere.
yeah.
Yeah. And we have that in Milford too. No smoking in our parks. You know, we.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we we met with Parks and Board of Health, came up with the regulation. And we even, back several years ago, we deputized the principal and assistant principals at Milford High to be our agent because we're the only department that can fine.
Oh.
You know, where a school can't fine, they could give you detention for breaking policy and whatnot, but they can't fine
Here I
you.
was thinking that Milfordians were being so nice because you go to the parks and you don't see, you know, so many of the parks in the city, there's just cigarette butts
Yeah,
everywhere.
Right.
And it's like kind of
You don't see that heavy butts around.
I don't see it around Milford. Now I know why. They can't
Yeah,
smoke in the
they can't
park.
smoke in the
You know,
parks.
before we instituted these programs, we put on an extensive education program with all these different entities. You know, we didn't just go and say, you got to stop it. Here's the reason why. And we went through the whole venue with them. Then we asked them to come to a meeting, and we talked to them at the meeting about it.
And the parks even asked us too,
Yeah.
can you help us out with this? You know, I mean, you
No,
go
better
to.
for them. They
you
don't
go
have to clean up.
You go to Inglesey Field or Rosenfeld Park, watch a Little League game, someone lights up a cigarette, not only, you know, it's a bad example for the kids, but also, you know, who wants to breathe in secondhand smoke? So Mike Brashani and the commissioners asked us to, you know, what we could do. And we came up with these regulations and.
I do have a question because I was a little worried years ago when we promoted that pharmacies and other places stopped selling cigarettes. Not that I'm not going there to buy cigarettes.
Right.
But every time I read about the stings,
Yeah.
never once was it a CVS, a Rite Aid.
It's true.
Right.
Because they're so accustomed to following
Following regulations.
FDA regs about who gets what
I agree.
medicine, that it seemed like they were the best people to make sure that nobody under
Right.
21.
It-
How's it working now?
And they were one of the first,
We-
I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
CVS was one of the first pharmacies that banned it altogether.
true. very
on their
true.
own without.
But they did it on their own. We
On
didn't.
their own,
Right,
without any
but
pressure.
right now, Al, the Board of Health didn't ban it in pharmacies.
No.
Talking to you once, and we both agreed, all three of us, four of us agreed on your show back then that it was more or less delegating philosophy as opposed to health regulation. You know, in what we thought too is when you mentioned about the sting operations that we do, and you never see a pharmacy, you know, getting stung or pinched, and that's very true. But you see a lot of the convenience stores, gas station stores that would be the main violators. And what would happen? So we ban tobacco in pharmacies, and that's just more competition for those variety stores
You're
that
just
are
pushing-
violators.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly, so it didn't make sense to stop any pharmacies from selling it.
So we didn't do that. They
No,
did that on
They
their
did
own.
Right,
that on
right.
their own.
Right.
Right, and as a result, more of the convenience stores, garages, whatever, of course, increase their business, which we have a harder time
Control.
enforcing
But now-
the regs.
You took some action to limit how many of the little moms and pops, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think we're capped at 35.
35.
35.
And why, again, there's a reason why that was done. It just wasn't because we did it by the seat of our pants. It's something that the Department of Public Health and us did some data, and we felt as though that the per capita for individuals 21 years and older, because that's our limit, is 21. That population is, we have more establishments than we have individuals at that age. So we're over the limit, you know, if, you know, to put it
But now-
nice.
What's the difference between having 40 convenience stores selling cigarettes
Well,
or
because
35?
Because per capita would be over the limit of what the average is, of what the state average is. Let's say the state average was, let's say for a town like Milford and the population that we have, it would be 30, but we have 35.
But Paul, if there were 50 out there,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that any of us would go out after the show and buy cigarettes, just because there's more.
Right. It's just, it's.
I thought it
it's
was more of a control on your part that you've got to watch over 35.
Well,
That's,
that's probably secondary.
I was going to
You
say,
know,
I
I
mean,
mean-
watching over 50, that's 15 more you've got to
Right.
check every so often.
I even wish that it would be legal for the Board of Health to put a cap on the amount of food establishments that come in, because that's getting very hard to control today. I mean, look at what they did at the Kmart Plaza. You know, we have a new super Stop and Shop. In that Stop and Shop is a
Food service.
they had the food
restaurant.
service, the
Sushi
sushi,
bar.
a sushi bar. They also now do water infusion with fruits. Very high risk, even though it doesn't sound it, but it is.
Water infusion with fruits.
With fruits, yeah. They cut up the fruit, put it in a bottle with water. Vacuum it,
site?
On-site.
On site. Vacuum.
Actually, you pour the water yourself.
So look at all the steps, you know, that you're taking in the risk factors, because cut fruit is a potentially hazardous food. You know, it's not just because it's fruit and it's not meat or fish or anything. This is fruit. This is potentially hazardous as your meats and fishes. You know, so you know that we have a Starbucks coming in. A few others I can't think of offhand, but just in that one plaza alone would keep someone up, like a part-time inspector going full-time. You know what I mean? So
And look at your Big Y, they have a mini restaurant in their place also.
yeah, they do.
They sell pizza, sandwiches,
Right, and they also have a sushi
sushi
bar
bar
as well.
also.
You know, and sushi again, very
The
very
sushi
high
bar would,
risk.
to me, instinctively worry me the most. I mean, you're selling raw dead fish.
You're selling raw
Raw
dead
dead,
fish, and when you eat food, rare beware. And not only that, but now you're talking about your acid base that you have to get down to at least a 4.3 pH, because that's when you know you're more or less minimizing the growth of bacteria. And they put it on a bed of rice, you know, or they roll it in rice. That rice now is handled and whatnot, and it has to be kept at least a 4.3 pH.
See, you know, when I think of sushi, and I've never worried about a Wanakora. Seems like high quality. Every time I go in there, the sushi I get, I mean, to me, it saves me a trip to Boston. They're so good.
Oh, yeah, they're very good.
You know,
Right.
but when I think about a grocery store and teenagers working in there, it worries me.
The grocery stores do have teenagers working there, but usually the sushi bars themselves have very good trained, special trained chefs.
Oh, okay, so there is
Yeah.
somebody looking
oh,
over
yeah.
it.
Oh, cripe, yeah. And not only that, but they usually sub it out too. It's not really the big Y or Stop and Shop that's doing it. It's a vendor that they would hire to come in and
Okay, so
actually
you got
do it.
Mazzucchelli Sushi or us
That would
comes in.
specialize totally in sushi.
Well, that makes me feel
Yeah,
better.
it should.
Because that always worries me.
Right.
You know, something that, you know, I laugh and call it raw dead fish, but it is not cooked.
Right.
But these sushi chefs are highly trained individuals. They have to train for 2 or 3 years before they can go out and actually serve it.
Right.
Yeah, but see, now it make me feel better because I was worried that, you know, somebody prepares it and then the regular staff, not that there's anything wrong with the staff, but you can get some kids or whatever handling food that aren't 100% trained. And, you know, let's face it, if it's a burger, you know, ground meat, at least I'm going to bring it up to 160 degrees. I can cure some ills.
Just on their file alone, on any sushi area place that we have in town, it's like it's this thick. We ask for their training, how often they go to their training, what their curriculum is in their training, what lab they use, the results of the lab that they send their rice to or their
The fish.
acid,
Yeah,
usually like a vinegar.
Yeah.
But it's just, again, very extensive. It's like a whole different section of the food code that we have
You
to
know,
go
but
by.
we get excited when we see new businesses coming to town, new restaurants.
Right.
But on the other hand, doesn't that put a new additional burden on you?
It sure does, and that's why I mentioned, you know, too bad we can't put a moratorium on food like we did the
Tobacco.
tobacco. But
But don't they pay for a permit?
yeah,
Or?
yeah.
Does it cover
There's
it?
only so much of us, though.
No, but I'm
What-
just
what are
saying,
we
it
at,
doesn't.
about 150 food
Close
services?
to it.
Yeah.
150 food
You're
establishments
talking
in
your
Milford?
retails, your mom and pops, your very high-risk ones, you know, your hospital cafeterias that serve all
School cafeterias.
School
the
cafeterias.
businesses, like up on
Yeah.
Waters, they have their own cafeteria also.
Well, the schools, I mean, you got Carla.
Yep.
No bug would take on Carla.
No.
Oh, no, no.
No
You know, I mean, you laugh about it, but you sit there and say,
Oh, yeah.
of all the people I'd want to trust
Cow.
to serve our children, you know, we got 4,200 kids in that
Right,
system.
right.
Could you think of anybody you'd
No.
more trust than Carla?
She's okay.
Yeah.
She's very good.
You know,
We're glad to have her. And like, yeah, she's trained. She goes to classes quite often. She also encourages her staff to go as well. You know, the way the code is today, you need at least one person that's trained.
well, you mentioned in one of the previous shows that you can't have one person that's trained per establishment.
Per shift.
Per shift.
It's got to be active
Right, per
on
shift.
per shift.
And not only that, but part of the inspection is not only to making sure they are by checking their certification, but also you should ask them questions. You know, various questions, you know, what would you do, you know, what would be the temperature that you would put that particular food product at? You know, and they have to answer. If not, that's actually a violation.
Yeah.
If they get it wrong.
So if I don't know what my ground
Beef
meat
should be, right.
be, well, that makes sense, because if
Yeah.
I'm bringing it up to 130 or 120 degrees,
You don't want that.
Oh,
But,
if one of the employees
but-
comes in with a cut on his fingers and wearing a Band-Aid,
you know, but
You
it's,
ask them, what do you
but
do
it's-
with that?
It's right on the inspection report, you know, I mean, the knowledge of the person in charge.
that's a good point. I hadn't even thought about that. You know, cuts on your hands
yeah, very important.
when you're in the middle of preparing food.
Or if we require a hat, if you don't have that hat on, you're sweating in someone's food, even though you're cooking it, still,
Or what's your sick?
Well, see, if you were like Paul, you'd need a hat. I mean, I don't have enough hair
got a
anymore.
lot of hair.
A net would work fine.
But like for instance, their employee policy, if someone's sick, you know, what would be your policy? What would you do? Hence the Chipotle.
yeah.
That all started with the sick employee who had a stomach ache. Manager wouldn't send him home because he was shorthanded.
And what does the
made them
manager
stay.
know about neurovirus? They learned quick.
They learn
yeah.
very quick, yeah. Right.
What is the biggest issues you run into with food establishments?
It would probably be temperatures.
Lack of cleaning,
Yeah, yeah, and also,
working late, going home tired, I don't wanna clean up, I'll do it tomorrow morning,
and not only that, but driving home the personal
hygiene. yeah.
hygiene of the employees. You know, hats, like Lenny was saying, gloves, washing hands.
And the gloves, people, I get gloves, I'm safe, but they're single-service gloves, you do it
Yeah.
done, you throw them away.
Yeah,
but
it's a false
people,
sense of security.
they wear them for everything.
You know,
they
they get
touch
the glove,
this.
they'd cough or sneeze, and they'd, you know, continue eating. I mean,
You think
or
about it,
preparing.
because like in the lab, we've got, non-latex, but it's once and they're disposable.
Right.
They're not meant to last the whole day.
No,
It's,
not at all. Right.
That's one area that they need more training on, I
Mm-hmm.
believe in, because they just don't tell them, change your glove, they're cheap anyways.
yeah, the disposable gloves are very, but it is a cost.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Somebody's got to go spend $8 on a box. But it's
but-
part of the job.
look at the other end, people are more aware now than they were before. They can go on the computer, they can look up the food code, they can see I'm getting sick from this and that, and they're willing to sue. So these restaurants, they gotta be on their toes. Not only from us, if they're national chains, they have an inspector come in and do their own.
Lenny, I remember reading the survey about the beer nuts on a bar.
Oh, yeah,
Oh my God. When they came out and said 80% tested positive for E. coli,
Yeah.
all of a sudden, it's horrible, but you see somebody reaching in,
Yeah.
and you start looking, saying, I wonder if they wash their hands after a certain biological function.
Oh, yeah, well, that's what it is. If you stratify that and found out where the E. coli would come from, a lot of it would be because of toilet use.
yeah,
Where else would
Yeah. Yeah.
it's going to be from the bathrooms.
yeah.
Because I think some of them even said, like, some of the mints that
Yeah.
you see on the desk as you leave to go out, urine was very high on that test.
It's people who went wee-wee and didn't wash their hands.
And then
Some
grab
of
the
the-
mint.
And
Some of the
they come
coffees-
in, they stick their hand in the whole bucket of mints.
Yeah.
And,
Some of the coffee shops have the stirrers in the jar in front there, so you get your coffee and pick up the stirrer.
oh, Lord. You
could
put
take a-
images in my head that are
Yeah,
going to
you
take
don't want
many
that.
hours of therapy to remove. I can just see myself now going okay, I'm just going to shake my...
Well, actually, we were thinking, how can we drive Al nuts?
Well, you're doing a good job because, you start talking about alkaloids, nicotine.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I can deal with my 3 or 4 cigars a year. If I had to, I'd give them up.
Yeah.
But there's certain alkaloids that are my friend.
That's right.
I have a question about cigars. Now, do you go to Cuba to buy your cigars?
No, actually, I got them in Moscow.
Oh, okay.
I got them in Moscow the last time I went. I haven't gone to Cuba to get them, but we got real cohibas. And then you put them in the suitcase and you say, please don't look. Please don't look. $400 a box, please don't look.
You better hope nobody from the.
Yeah, only my mother I've ever seen get away with. She broke every health code I've ever known when she'd go to Portugal because she knew I loved fresh figs. So the day she was leaving Portugal, she'd pick 6 nice big figs, put them in her suitcase, and take some, I don't know what they call it because I don't know what extra virgin olive oil means, but freshly pressed olive oil. Now, if you can think of anything that would drive a health inspector crazy, it's some nice old lady bringing in fresh fruit
Yeah, from another country.
from another country.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember sitting there saying, she's going to be arrested because one time when I was coming in, I met her, and the customs guy looked and said, do you have anything in your suitcase that, do you want to declare? She goes, no. He says, can I look? She goes, no. And he said, why? And my mother, as honest as the day's long, says, because you'll find things you don't like and you'll make me very sad. The poor guy just looked and said, okay, open it. Goes to put his hands in, and I swear to God, I'm watching her. She slapped his hand.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, if one of us slapped a customs agent, that would be it.
You're
Wouldn't
gone.
get back to Milford for a long
That's
time.
pretty good.
But it was just, you shook your head and you said, Ma, you can't bring these fresh figs. I brought them every year for 50 years. It's like, oh, God bless her. She had her heart in the right place.
She sure did.
But that's what worries me sometimes about some of the mom and pops,
Yeah.
that they just Well, it's never been a problem.
Yeah.
You know, how often do you visit all these places?
The state code, Al, says a minimum of 2 times per year. Milford has been doing it for the past several years. Some we even hit 5, and it's not because, you know, of course there's some that are more if they're
Oh, I
problems.
mean, that's 600 to 700 inspections a year.
Yeah, we just go crazy on that. And then, of course, like lately, we've
And
been
you have
at
an army of staff to do this?
No, we have,
3 inspectors, and we have a part-time contract, though.
yeah, Billy
He's
Fisher.
under contract.
Right.
But there's only 200 days in a year, so that means they're doing an average of 3 a day?
Easy. Easy, yeah. Yeah. And,
And that doesn't count the repeats, because if I
well,
remember right,
the repeats go a little quicker, but they're there because, of course, if there's violations that we got to make sure are addressed, we have to go back.
you have to go back and back.
Absolutely, yeah. What I found out helps a lot, too, is we put a synopsis of the inspection in the newspaper. Well, the patch.
Right.
Which we give it to the Daily News, too, whether they put it in or not, I don't know. But the patch always puts it in. They always look forward to it. And they get a lot of comments on it as well, so.
Well, I
guess
mean,
it's a
that's the
pretty good
logical
seller.
question is,
Yeah.
you know, we had a place that was chronically coming up with salmonella years ago. I mean, I got to admit, to me, it was simple. I ain't going there.
Right, right.
I feel bad because maybe it's not their fault.
No, it was a food worker.
Yeah.
And again, you know, it was a salad. You know, it's a ready-to-eat food. You know, it doesn't go through any process of heating and whatnot. And that particular person tested positive for salmonella when we did the culture. And she was working at that time. Everything, you know, fit in.
Well, you know, it's amazing because when I was at Cambridge Biomed, we started getting a lot of Hep A testing. And mainly from embassy and government workers that were traveling to East Africa. And apparently it came from the salads.
Yeah.
You know, it kept me from ever eating another salad when I
Yeah.
went abroad
Yeah.
to any, you know, the Middle East or Africa. That's it. I'm not, and I never thought about it that, you know, I could be
It goes-
getting Hep from a
From
salad.
It goes from the food worker, making the salad right to you. There's no cooking process. There's no, what do we call it, like a control point.
Well, like I said, I mean, at least if you beat into them, I guess it's 160 degrees for certain meat. If there was something there, maybe I get lucky and I chew it up.
Right, right.
But if I'm giving you a salad or, you know, we get over to France and their idea of well done is it kind of looked at the flame.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, my darling bride was in heaven because she likes everything. I mean, basically, cut the tail and the horns off, put the cow on the table, she's happy. And I'm looking at it saying,
I don't think so.
No,
no, I want that thing dead.
dead, yeah.
Yeah, it's terrible, but no, I'll take it dead, thank you.
Well, you see in the news all the time out in California and all these large areas that grow these vegetables, the workers have no place to go to the bathroom, no place to wash their hands, so they go right in the field. So it migrates right to the lettuce or whatever they're picking. Goes back to wash, wash, wash.
Amazing. Now, I can go on a website, or do I have to look at the patch? If I want to find out what establishments have had issues in Milford, where would I go?
Well, you can call us up, and you just gave me an idea about the website, but Patch has all our inspections. But we got to start putting them on ours too.
I was going to say, you know, if I
Yeah.
could, as a resident, kind of nudge to say, hey, Andy, I mean, he doesn't live very far from you on the hall. He's only 2 doors down.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
To say, hey, Andy, it would really be nice both ways. Because if I want to go to my favorite restaurant, I mean, you know, God almighty, you laugh and say, how long we've been going to the Sorrento room? You know, we grew up going there.
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Najee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's still there. And my wife still wants that white pizza, which I don't understand. God bless her. But, you know, I would think places that always pass would love to see a
Of course
listing
they would, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
because it does show that, hey, passed. You know, and for new people, you know, a bunch of us who grew up here kind of know places that, you know, you go down there and he's always smiling, he's always pleasant.
Yeah.
You can't go wrong. But if there was an issue, I certainly would like to know it before I take, you know, my kids and my darling bride down there.
But you have a right to come to the office anytime.
but I
with
think
the
something
file.
like
Yeah,
We
but
should put
Lenny-
it on the website.
We should put it on the
Lenny,
website.
think of an
next
old
week.
man like me. I leave the house at 5 in the morning to go to work. By the time I get home, it's 6 at night. When am I going to the health department?
When we're closed.
Right. But if you had a place on the website,
Right, it should be.
You're
that'd
right.
be
On the
wonderful.
website,
Absolutely.
No question.
Next show, I'll ask again.
No, you're right, no.
Sure.
Okay.
That's a good idea.
Kenny, talk to me about opioids, because that seems right, wrong, or indifferent to be the biggest issue I can think of.
And
It is.
Kenny
You
was
know,
the
and it-
leader on that.
It's strange when, I can go way back when I first started getting interested in running for the health board. The issues were, you know, your trash, what are you gonna do with your trash? What are you gonna do with
Those
amblyopia?
apartment buildings are leaving trash out. They're not recycling.
Right.
That's the big
No,
crisis.
Recycling wasn't even thought of then. And then, of course, we had the amblyopia clinics for lazy eye, and we were
You even have
running very-
scoliosis too.
Yeah.
The
Scoliosis
the
also, yeah.
spine.
Yes.
Yep.
And we had different clinics. Today, the big issue, that's it, it's the opioid addiction
But-
and the abuse of it. We had 104 ODs in Milford in 2017.
But what amazes me is they're all 20 years old, right? It's all reckless
No,
kids.
No, no, no.
No, they're 40 years old, 50 years old. We've even had,
You had a guy my age,
we've had 3 or 4 that were in the
60
60s.
years old.
They're in the 60s, right? Yep. And-
Yeah, I'm stunned
And, you
because,
know, and that's what is difficult, because we've associated with the school department. We have
Right.
Films.
Lisa White and
Amy.
Amy
Amy Leone.
Leone, which we've contracted with, and we have programs. We acquired different tapes that we showed the substance abuse, and we've introduced it into the school system, and they're running it in the school system. So we know we're at least getting the younger ones educated and made aware of how awful it is. But what do you do with the 40, 50, 60-year-olds? How do you reach them? How do you?
how do you get
Get
through
to
to
them.
them? For the love of God.
Right.
I'm 61, right? You're going to reach me. I mean, first of all, I would never even think to reach out
Right.
to somebody as old as us. You know, you'd
that's-
say you should know better already.
Well,
And that's really a big problem, because of that 104 that OD'd last year, 9 of them died. And that's right here in Milford. And it's not like they're 18, 19. Some of them are, but the majority are adults. The majority are 30, 40, 50,
See, and that's
60
what
years
stuns me, because, you know, we've talked about how when we grew up, the heroin addict, we knew what that was. It was a CDO guy in a back alley in
hanging down
Boston.
the Comac, who's
Right.
not here anymore, so I can say it.
Yes, exactly.
You know
But
what
I
I
mean,
mean?
you know, in Milford, you had a couple areas that they were behind the Comac, and, okay, today, my God, it could be our kids.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
We
you
had
think,
the first one we had this year so far, I say so far, hopefully that's it. We had a 22-year-old today that OD'd on Main Street.
wait a minute, so far, today is January 2nd.
Right.
You're 1.5 days into. But I guess if you had 100 Milfordians, that's twice a week. That's every 2.5, 3
Right.
days.
In-
Every
uh,
3.5 days.
And like what Kenny was saying, Al, you know, what we're trying to do with the school and getting the younger students educated is being proactive instead of reacting to the people our age or at or around our age, where they're already there. They're already addicted.
But you know, the amazing part is, okay, I just had oral surgery, and they gave me some pretty heavy-duty painkillers. Yeah, that prescription went right into my desk, and I said, you know, I'll live with 4 of the ibuprofens.
Yep.
And I don't know, but it scares the living heck out of me. You know, to think that it's no longer the seedy guy behind the Comac.
Right.
No.
It's,
Yeah.
it's someone like yourself who had a surgery, who now gets put on this medication. And from what I understand, you know, talking to Doc Perriello, who's our physician, as well as the schools, and reading a few articles, it more or less reconfigures your brain, you know, where it's not your fault. You know, it's not that you want to be an
again,
addict.
like anything, you know, we talked about people we know with Parkinson's and how over a period of time, the receptor sites get worn out. So all of a sudden, you know, a medication that was working now it doesn't work as well. And you get to a point where you've hit the maximum you can do, you know, and it's still not going to help you. Well, it's got to be the same thing on any opioids.
And the sad part is, you know, like with the Parkinson's, it's close to me. I have a family member that has it. And I also was speaking at the Heights reunion with an old friend, an old-time neighbor, and he informed me that he had it.
Doc, yeah.
Yeah, and so, you know, these things, it's bad enough with these things going on. Without, now we have to deal with the opioid addiction and the use of
I mean, the idea of the opioid addiction, when you think about it, okay, so you get some oxy. I'm personally kind of amazed that they haven't been able to really force the companies to develop a heavy-duty, long-term release agent. You know, so that you can't grind it up or extract it, whatever, and get a high. But, you know, you start thinking about, I think Tom O'Laughlin told me, Oxy now goes for $1 a mig on the street. So one tablet, $81. Who can afford, you know, 3 tabs a day? That's
Right.
$250 a
Wow.
day.
Yeah.
And I got to believe that if you're doing 2 or 3 tablets a day, you aren't at peak performance and keeping a high-paying job. So eventually,
Yeah.
I mean, I can see where, yes, your receptor sites are dulled to a point where you need more and more and more. Hence, you know, you turn around and say the ODs. But no wonder people go to heroin. Instead of $80, it's 15.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, not that $50 a day is an easy hit for people, but
Sure.
sure is better than 200.
200. So that's why we like to get the awareness out, the education out at the younger age. So hopefully that generation would not have that same problem. Hence what the Department of Public Health did with tobacco. Back in the 90s, you know, we had that big push, you know.
Oh, it
let's
worked.
make
Do you remember
smoking-
our kids? I mean, my daughter and your son.
Yeah.
I remember one time where a good friend and I had Cohiba Robustos. It had been like 4 or 5 months since we had one. We looked at each other and said, let's go.
Yeah.
And we're walking, and we kept looking down at his
Yeah.
house, saying, we far enough away?
Yeah.
We far enough? And I joked with him. I said, you know we're going to get arrested. He goes, what do you mean? Somebody's going to look outside their window, see 2 old guys kind of cowering,
Towering, yeah,
you know,
looking
with a
suspicious-
cigar.
Suspicious
They're
characters.
going to call the police and say, I got 2 weird people out
Yeah.
there. And then we're going to try and explain to them that we're trying to hide from our 10-year-old kids.
Right, because the education and awareness was there about tobacco. And you didn't want to disappoint them because in their mind, it's wrong.
Yeah. Well, I
that's-
mean, it's
it-
like anything else.
And that's the same thing we want to do with the
You're not going to
opiates.
get drunk in front of your kids
Right,
and then tell
right.
them not to.
Exactly.
You're not going to swear
Right.
and scream and tell them it's wrong.
It's wrong, right.
You know, I mean, it was the same thing with ski helmets. I used to love skiing with my shapka, my Russian hat, because my ears stayed nice and warm. Till one day Alexis looked at me and said, aren't we the hypocrite? I said, excuse me? She goes, I have to wear a helmet because it's dangerous.
But you don't.
That was it. They went to shop guy, had to go out
Yeah.
and buy a helmet.
There you go. Yeah.
So, I mean, the education certainly seems to work if you keep up with it.
That's what we're trying to do. Like Kenny said, we made that part of the curriculum.
And now
You know.
that's the part, again, that's the difficult part when you're talking about 30-year-old to 60-year-old. How do you reach them? How do you educate them? They're not about to sit down at a class or.
No, but that's
something
where
like
the
this, but
counseling and
that's-
therapy comes in, hopefully.
It's hard, it's difficult.
No,
We're
like I say-
We're now looking at different materials that we want to acquire, which we will.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, we'll put them out there, but how do you get people to read
Well,
them?
there's that inflection point where I want to be able to say, Paul, how can you be this stupid to get hooked? But once you are, okay, all bets are off. Yelling at you or whatever, you've now crossed, you've tipped.
Right, right.
Now I got to deal with a disease.
Disease.
Right.
Exactly.
You know, I can be mad at you, your, friend, brother, whatever, saying, how could you do this?
Right.
But once you're there, and what can you do? How do you tell a 60-year-old it's time to grow up?
Right. You just try to get him help. That's it. That's when Amy comes in and the chief comes in. See, they're reacting to a situation. We try to be proactive and prevent it before it happens. And that's why when the chief and Amy were at our meetings, what happens is when there is an overdose at a home or wherever, there'd be two detectives and Amy. And they'd go and interview the family, and then Amy would then go to the person, God be fortunate that the person is still alive, and ask him or her if they'd like to seek help. And then she'd provide all the names and appointments and whatnot for them.
Well, it's amazing because it's so obvious that, heroin or any opioid, it's a respiratory inhibitor. It is going to interfere with your ability to breathe.
To breathe.
So you take more and your lungs shut down, just like they're supposed to. They're reacting to a respiratory inhibitor. So the Narcan now blocks the sites, but that's only temporary.
Yeah, right.
If you don't get these people help, they're just going to jump right back.
Right.
And it's only a matter of time when the Narcan isn't gonna be there. It isn't gonna save them. That's.
Oh, no, it's
the
Russian
danger.
roulette
Yeah,
because-
right. That's the danger today. A lot of them, I assume, think, well, I don't need to worry, but we now have Narcan, and they'll get me out of it. Well, what if they're there 5 minutes
10 minutes too late.
Yeah.
Or 5 minutes. Somebody says, what's 5 minutes? I don't know. Hold your breath and let's count. Let's see how long you can last. Probably not 5 minutes without a breath.
Right.
So if the police or the ambulance services aren't there within 4 minutes, Houston, we have a problem.
That's right. Scary.
Yeah,
But I mean, it's amazing. We lost 10 Milfordians last year.
well, 9, but. yeah.
9,
Yeah.
okay.
10, yeah.
Still pretty
Yep.
And that was
scary.
down from last year. Last year was even higher.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, and the sad thing, one of them was a friend of mine, and I still have him on Facebook, and I got a notification yesterday, it's so-and-so's birthday today, wish him a happy birthday.
I only wish you
And
could.
I just thought it back, and
No, I mean, there's so many people that we've lost. I mean, we just did our 500th, and one of the first shows was with Dave Morganelli. And when that came on, it kind of took your breath away because you remembered what a super guy
Very nice.
with such a nice family, such a devoted
Right.
man, just enjoyable person to be around.
He was, yeah.
I mean, we argued all the time. It was wonderful.
Yeah.
But you sit there and say, you lose people like that through no fault of their own, not by any actions they've taken. You hate to lose people that you didn't have to.
especially being as young as he was.
Yeah. But, you start talking about 30, 40-year-olds. I mean, how do I explain to my grandson, I'm not going to be here because I'm being silly?
Yeah.
I don't know. Just God bless Amy and everybody for doing what they do.
Right.
Now,
We're thankful that they included us in their program, that they let us be a part of it, and that we could help them. And we sent, how many students to that
Oh,
leadership
the
conference?
leadership, yeah,
Yeah.
it was quite a bit.
Yeah, we had contract with Allied Services, Republic Services, and part of that contract, we had so much money we could use as public community services. And we, this past year, used that money to send, I don't know, it's 30-some odd students to the leadership
Here's a new one
conference.
that I have no idea. I'm hearing that we have a new housing development coming in, that they're putting in their own sewer system?
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Now, what does that mean, like a big septic tank, or?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's that 40B up on East Main Street. And at one time, when they were, about 2 years ago, when they first came up with that plan, the Board of Health asked that they, number one, tap into the municipal sewer, because that is, it has. the
Call John
poten-
Mainini
Right.
and
Because-
do like everybody that has the
Yeah.
option of tying into sewer does.
Right, especially something with 300 units. You know, the board felt as though that area too could be, you know, part of a recharge area too, to our
But
water.
is it a big septic system? Is it a treatment? What
It's
is?
a treatment, small treatment
It's a
plant.
small, almost, it's a mini, if anybody is familiar with our wastewater treatment plant in Milford, the Milford wastewater treatment plant, it's a mini version of that.
But what worries me is, okay, a screw pump goes down and Rudy and Tom and John have to come up with $250,000 to fix it. They don't have a choice.
Right.
They're part of our town, they've been putting money away, they do but they don't have a choice. What happens if something goes wrong on this mini plant?
That's the
our
Board of Health's.
concern. We've got them coming in the 8th of January, and that's exactly what we want to know. First of all, who is responsible for maintaining it and for how long? And what happens 40 years from now, 50 years from now? Who owns that system? Who's gonna be
I look at
responsible for it?
when Whitewood development, our development was first put in, they put in these berm, instead of granite curbings, they put in the berms.
Yeah.
Okay, 3-4 years, everything was fine.
Yeah.
You can't blame Scotty and his guys, they're
Yeah.
moving snow, and all of a sudden, my berm went away. Ain't got one. Now who do I go talk to?
Right.
Yeah.
And you know, that's what worries me is, okay, what kind of bond are you putting up? If you're not gonna tie into our sewer system where we have some control, what are you gonna tell 300 homes? Hey, you can't go to the potty,
Right.
right? I'm sorry, 10 years ago, that company disappeared,
Right.
and now your
we have-
plant doesn't work.
We have a lot of questions
You know,
concerning that.
to even a little bit more concerned too, is because it's more than 10,000 gallons a day, it's gonna be like 25,000 gallons a day. Because it's more than.
Water.
Because it's more than 10,000 gallons a day, the Department of Environmental Protection, DEP, takes over. We don't have a say in the acceptance. In other words, they do the review and the approval.
Paul, what worries me is what happens if DEP comes in and says, you're not compliant? Who do they say that to?
It was the property owner.
The property owner.
So you got 300 property owners.
Yeah, well, hopefully one, because it's not gonna be condos.
Oh,
But that was one of the big things that we had too. We don't want that, to be condos either, because if so, now we've got 300 more units that we have to pick up for rubbish and recycling. So, again.
There's a lot of issues that we have to address with them.
yeah, I mean, that just scares
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
Because
You know.
if something goes wrong and you go back and, you've got homeowners or whatever that sit there and say, Paul, I'm tapped out.
Well, not only that, but what if DEP does approve it, and everything is fine, the engineers, give them a great proposal, and they stamp it, it's built, they watch them build it, but what happens after?
Well, that's what I'm saying, a
know.
decade later.
Well, even a few months later, how about if there's an odor? We even get it from our own sewer department, sometimes they get.
Well, we just spent $5 million on that addition because
Yeah,
the odor was hitting neighbors.
Yeah.
It wasn't all $5 million,
No,
but
but still,
my Ninian crew were trying to take and
Right.
be good citizens
Yeah.
and minimize.
so what if
And
there's
I
a,
drove down the street the other day, the street that leads to where I live, and the pump had evidently malfunctioned, and they had a sewer truck there pumping it out, and they had a couple of workers there, but the odor was there.
Sure it was. So like I said, when you have those mishaps,
Who's gonna take care of it?
we need someone in charge.
But we don't have a choice. We can't tell them, you have to tie into our sewer system.
We did. The Board of Health did. We asked them because we were, that was an environmental sensitive area. And I guess he tried, the
cost.
developer tried, but I guess it was so cost prohibitive that he says he couldn't do it.
Yeah, that's still an issue.
I mean, we've been
still-
begging for sewer at our end of Milford, and they keep coming back saying, remember Milford pink granite? Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of it right between the
Yeah.
pipe and you.
And you,
Well, that's what they're running into up there. But like you said, I'm concerned, what's gonna happen in the future? Are we gonna own that plant? Are the taxpayers gonna have to pay for any repairs? I don't think it should be. This company all of a sudden decides, we're going belly up. Who owns it?
Well, that's my concern is years from now.
Yeah.
You turn around and say, okay, we've got a compliance issue. Who do we talk to?
yeah, what are we talking? We want a person in charge. We want an agency or some company that's their contractor who's in charge of the maintenance.
Yeah, and I can see Company A does an asset sale. So Company B buys the building.
Yeah.
But if Company A indemnifies them and Company A goes bankrupt without a bond,
Yeah,
who do you collect against?
Right, right.
exactly.
Yeah,
You know-
that's one of our big concerns. What's going to happen in the future? Who's going to be responsible for the system? Who's going to own it?
And another concern we have is water. Are we gonna have enough water to supply these people? We have all these shortages all the time. Can't wash your car, can't water your lawn, but you're gonna have water for,
Yeah, you get me going on this where every February I start seeing at the head of Silver Hill Road,
Right.
no watering your lawn.
yeah.
Who the heck would be watering lawn in February? I don't know. But what it tells me is there's not enough water now.
Yeah,
Right.
And yet,
Yep.
oh, we got plenty of water for them?
Yeah.
You know, 300 new units?
right.
Remember when the water companies tell us we have plenty of water, then they were buying the water from Bellingham?
Yes. Well, I asked the question, I said, okay, how could you, with a straight face, say we have plenty of water for this new casino? Well, things will be better, we'll invest. Well, then tell me what you're investing.
In what, yeah.
The casino.
You know, I mean, excuse me? I mean,
I know,
but now you got 300 homes,
right.
Yeah,
but this sewer thing really struck me
Yeah.
as odd
It-
because,
It caught us off guard too, because like I said, the last we heard, they were gonna go municipal sewer.
yep.
And then when, what was it, Kenny, about a month or two ago when we,
No, it's longer than that.
yeah, a little longer, maybe October.
Maybe, yeah.
And we got the
yeah,
plans.
you probably can't force it, but I'd love to see a bond
Well,
put up
if we-
saying, at least for the next 30 years.
Well, my feeling is if we can enforce it, if we have any sway at all with DEP, I'd still want them to go into our system.
Of course.
Yeah, I don't care what the cost is, that it's unaffordable, then
Well, but
scrap
see,
your whole
what
project.
scares me is, you're saying, okay, it's gonna cost $100, it's unaffordable. If that plant fails, well, what does it cost to redo the plant? Or then we, as Milfordians, have to pick up the $100
Yeah.
to run the pipes and tie it in.
Yep,
And it'd be a hell of a lot, pardon my French, a heck of a lot more expensive to do it later
Right.
when it fails.
Absolutely,
yep.
true. Again, it's
So,
something
yeah,
we'll have to
it's
figure out
really-
and drill.
And that's why we have them coming in on the 8th of this month.
I
So
remember
we'll know.
one house in our neighborhood, their septic failed. Oh my God, what a mess.
Yeah.
And the poor family, good family, but okay for the next 2-3 weeks
Yeah.
till they can get it dug up and,
Right, repaired.
now how do you say that to 300
You
families?
you gotta know,
Yeah.
yeah. Again, it's all new to us too, because they said the only one we have is the Milford Sewer wastewater plant. It's the only one we have in town, nothing to even compare it to.
So how do you even, I guess you don't have any influence. You can't send Rudy and, you know, we always joked about Rudy down the manhole to do inspections,
Well,
but,
at our meeting on the 8th, we are having not only Mike Dean come in, but also John Mainini.
oh, good.
You know, would like to have John, you know, from his perspective, what he feels as though could be a problem with this facility.
And I don't know, again, I'm not sure, I'm not familiar with the laws. I don't know if we can say to DEP, we don't want this, we want them to tie into our sewer system. And if, I don't know what
Well, we can try. We
Yeah,
can at least ask.
exactly.
And
But that's the problem with 40B. They can skirt all the laws we have up.
See, the zoning, the snobbery, I can see it.
Sure.
But wait a minute. You're putting housing next to our water supply?
If you remember correctly, Dave Condrey at one time said that that was a water recharge area.
That's what he
Right.
said, yeah. He
Yeah.
did say that.
He came to one of our meetings, he sat right in front of us. So now all of a sudden they can put a, I have a problem with that.
And again, you have to plan for the failures.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see what you can get done. Quick question, how's trash doing?
Fine.
It's just doing fine.
I mean, it's Christmas, I got to admit, I was ready because we had all the extra bags of.
Oh, yeah, they took it all.
Yeah.
They took it all.
Yep. That's part of the agreement we have with them.
For Christmas season.
Yeah.
No, that's one thing. We have a very good relationship with Republic Services. And so long as we notify them, look, there's going to be a bump in the road, they take care of it.
Well, I mean, every Christmas, you can almost count on the fact that
Yeah,
we
we
opened
have
up all the
excess.
presents. You know, you're jumping on the bags to squish everything, but there's more than the 2 bags or whatever.
So what
Yeah.
you're telling us that Santa Claus was very good to you then, huh?
Yeah,
Not to me, to my kids
Oh.
and my darling bride.
yeah.
I got a new pair of socks.
Here you go.
Did you get a pair or did you get one this year?
No, I got a whole pair of socks. I was happy, and a new Holy Cross shirt, so I was
There
happy.
you
Oh,
go,
there
pretty
you
good.
go.
But like I said, I mentioned it several times on your show in the past, how you know, Milford is very fortunate to have the program that we have. Again, you know, one of only, I think it's 6 municipalities now that actually provide this curbside service off the tax base. There's no bag fee, there's no user's fee. There's several towns right around us that do both. They do a bag fee and a user fee.
Wow.
You know,
And again, you sit there and say, with all due respect, a fee, I still feel somebody's hand going
Sure
in
it
my
is.
pocket. It's a
Yeah.
tax.
It's a tax.
right.
It's a tax.
That's
you
how
know?
we feel.
You can hide behind it and call
Mm-hmm.
it fancy, but
Yep.
quack, quack, feathers, it's a duck.
right,
And you know,
right.
you only make so much money. You only have so much money to spend. How often can you go to the well?
Right.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, thank you for the
Thank you.
update.
Yeah,
Thank you, and
for
Happy
having us.
New Year.
Happy New
to
Year.
everybody too.
And as always, thank you for watching. May God bless. And the 6 loyal viewers that we still have, thank you for keeping the torch alive and watching the show. May tomorrow be a better day than today has been. And we reach out to everybody that's suffering from the opioid addiction and just hope that somebody like Amy or the chief or the health department can step in and help. Good night, all.
Not too long since I've been home.